Hey, Coach Abel here with Coach Weiss, the Abel Body Experts, and this is a Coach 'em Up. We're going to talk about the realities of glycogen restoration and what it means and how it proceeds, etc., etc. So what you want to know is how it starts. So after prolonged exhaustive exercise, the restoration of muscle glycogen is very slow, okay? Even slower if you're a person who's trying to limit carbohydrates, obviously, because that's the building block of glycogen storage. So even if replenishment is optimal, okay, we have to realize that glycogen restoration proceeds at a rate of only about 5% an hour in terms of total restoration. 5% an hour. So it can take over 20 hours, even longer, for glycogen stores to return to normal or even adequate levels. So remember, glycogen is reduced by as much as 50% after only 10 or 20 minutes of high intensity training. So to think you can restore glycogen merely by having carbs during a workout and in that post window, Coach, that we hear about, this pre-peri and post nonsense, not nonsense, but to think that it's only within that window of time and that your glycogen restoration needs are satisfied, that's a little bit nearsighted and it's a little bit myopic. So it's a mistake of that narrow focus of windows of opportunity that glycogen storage and training all happens in some kind of 24-hour magic window. All right, so we need to look at the overall cumulative effects of glycogen restoration, given that you can deplete glycogen by 50% in only 10 to 20 minutes of training, and yet it takes 20 hours or more to refill glycogen or at least get it back to adequate levels. So if you're training multiple times per week or even multiple times per day, as we see in professional sports, then if you're trying to follow industry guidelines of pre-peri and post, then we got a bit of a dilemma, Coach.
Yeah, that's the thing. I can't quote the study directly, but I believe they've done them before where they compared glycogen levels in someone that did the post pre-peri and post to someone that just ate on regular intervals relatively high carbohydrate meals. And within that 20 to 24-hour period, there was really no difference in the restoration of the glycogen, as far as there was nothing. What it comes down to is there's nothing magic about that
window of opportunity
where that product was being used,
right?
As opposed to potatoes and chicken, right, or whatever you want to use.
And the other overarching effect, again, that the cumulative aspects of training is what adds up. So thinking in terms of this 24-hour meal timing, is if you're a regular trainer training hard like you do in a specific sport, then you're actually robbing yourself even more thinking in those narrow terms, because again, that 20 hours or more. There was another study as well where athletes were tested against themselves, so it wasn't like, you know, different groups and placebos, but they were actually tested against themselves on low and high carbohydrate intake. And the ones who took in high carbohydrates all day long over a period of time were able to exercise 3 times longer to exhaustion compared to a low carbohydrate or non-carbohydrate. So again, what we see here is 3 times longer to exhaustion. Well, imagine the increase in work capacity and adaptation that you get from that. So go ahead, Coach. Comment.
Yeah, when people are talking about actually getting results, and the fact is you actually need your body to train harder, not necessarily super longer, but you have to be able to train hard enough to make a difference.
Sure.
And if you're not feeding your body so that it can train hard, well, you're not going to be able to make a difference. So,
like 8-time Olympian Mr. Olympia Lee Haney used to say, best engine in the world ain't going nowhere if there's no gas in the tank.
Yeah, exactly.
So the other problem with glycogen restoration, if it's not adequate, then again, that cumulative effect, when you stop thinking about that 24-hour window, the cumulative effect, or the negative cumulative effect of that, is that the body will downregulate type 2B muscle fiber, which of course is the fiber we want as power or strength athletes, and the body will actually downregulate that, so you lose type 2B fiber. So again, thinking in these narrow 24-hour windows as the industry would want you to think is a little bit narrowed thinking, can actually cost you results. This has been a Coach 'em Up on glycogen restoration.